Good afternoon and welcome back to My Harlem Portrait, the show that wants to shed a light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and Black excellence in every field. Today, we have a very special guest, one of the country's leading diversity professional. His name is Michael J. Garner. Welcome to My Harlem Portrait, Michael.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Happy holidays to you and the family.
That's right. Thank you to you too. So you are the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the MTA for the state of New York. You are chairman of the corporate board and immediate past president. You were president from 2014 to 2020 of the founding chapter of 100 Black Men New York. You are advisor on MWDBE matters to various US cities and states, including the city of Buffalo, the city of Chicago, Chicago Transit Authority, and the state of New Jersey. You were selected as a 2021 Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer of the Year by Crain's New York, among other awards and recognitions that you have been receiving all along your career. So this is amazing. You are doing so much for the diversity in the community. You said it is your personal professional mission to create a more diverse business environment. So tell please our viewers in which way, and shall we start with the new program that you and your team created?
Yes, so as you indicated, I'm the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the MTA. The MTA is the largest transportation network in North America with more than 70,000 employees. We service 5,000 square miles. As you know, we also encompass Long Island Railroad. In addition to Metro North, we have an $18 billion budget. We purchase an additional $6 to $7 billion a year in goods and services. And we have a $54.8 billion capital program, which means that we're going to spend $54.8 billion on construction projects over the next 5 years. As recent as last week, President Biden approved and signed off on the infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion. The MTA will be beneficiaries of $10 billion of that money. And so my role here, and along with my 60 employees, our role is everything diversity in the MTA. From the people side, making sure that our workforce reflects the great diversity of our region of 14 counties, and making sure that taxpayers' dollars are spent not only in a cost-effective manner because it's taxpayers' dollars being spent, but also in an inclusive manner. And that's inclusive of New York State certified minority-owned businesses. And so from a data point perspective, the MTA last year became one of the first agencies in history to pay $1.4 billion to minority-owned firms in 1 year. We broke history last year.
And this is, since you have arrived at MTA in 2009, your trend has been that of really increasing the amount of budget that is dedicated to minority business.
Yes, so we basically, since I was hired here, we have been responsible for $10.3 billion being paid to New York State certified firms. That's $10.3 billion. And so as I indicated before, that we became one of the first, if not the only agency to pay in excess of $1.4 billion in payments last year to New York State certified MWBE firms.
That is really a record.
So it's important for us because we understand that access to contracts equals job creation in the Black and Brown communities. It equals home ownership. It equals better education opportunities and healthcare options. And so it is very important for us to spend taxpayers' dollars in an inclusive manner.
Absolutely. And it's also a way to give back to those community who have been taken from for 400 years, I would say. Tell us, among these projects, a couple of those that you consider most rewarding for you, that you are most proud of.
One program that we created was the MTA Small Business Mentoring Program, which we went to Albany to get a state law passed in order for us to create this program. That program allows the smaller minority-owned contractors to bid as prime contractors to the MTA. A lot of the smaller minority-owned contractors only have a qualification of doing business as a subcontractor. But what we are affording these 200 plus firms the opportunity to bid directly to the MTA as prime contractors. Thereby, they are in control of their own destiny. In that program, we waive bonding. We've hired Carver Federal Savings Bank in order to issue loans to these contractors up to $900,000 per contract. And just recently, we awarded one contract that put us over the $500 million threshold. So $500 million in contracts have been awarded to in this program to smaller contractors and given them, once again, the opportunity to work as prime contractors for North America's largest transportation network. Second award that we are most proud of is the recent $167 million contract that was awarded to a Bronx-based Hispanic firm. That firm is going to afford us to carry our passengers. So it's a concept or program that we have called paratransit. And we are mandated by the federal government to afford transportation to senior citizens and other handicapped customers that we have. And so for far too long, we have been finding a certified minority-owned firm to award a major contract to, and that contract was awarded to Century. Once again, it is based in the South Bronx, and they have a $162 million contract for 4 years, and then we have 2 one-year options. So that contract is going to exceed $400 million. And as a matter of fact, that contract is the second largest contract to be awarded to a minority-owned company since the state's MWBE program was created in July of 1988 by former Governor Andrew Cuomo. So we are very happy that we have had the opportunity to award this very sizable contract to a New York State certified MBE firm.
Wonderful. This is amazing. There are really achievements that are what they call the trickle-down economy that usually doesn't trickle down at all. Yours is trickling down, absolutely. One question, why these companies were not allowed to be primary contractors before?
Because they weren't large enough. And so the MTA is not only the largest transportation network in North America, we are also one of the world's biggest builders. And so if you think about our East Side Access project, where we built a tunnel between Penn Station and Grand Central, that's a $12.8 billion contract. If you look at Second Avenue Subway, where we're going to be extending the subway from 96th Street up to 125th Street in Harlem, that's an $8 billion project. Wow. If you look at the third track project in Nassau County and Suffolk, where we're building a third track, that's a $2.1 billion contract. And so a lot of these contractors do not have the ability to bond or to bid on larger projects. So we changed state law and we are debundling and designing smaller packages where these firms now have the ability, once again, to bid to the MTA as prime construction contractors.
Which is also a better thing for the customer, because if something goes wrong, there is a responsibility, which is a direct responsibility, instead of having to look for different companies. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And once again, it is incumbent upon us to spend taxpayers' monies in an inclusive manner, and that's including the whole entire market.
Yes, this is it. If a community would know more of what you're doing, I think it would be a very important matter of pride that this is happening, because
Yes.
because what you're doing, it's really reviving the economy in the most sustainable way, not just giving the money, but giving the money to make money, to create jobs, to create wealth, to create an economy which is more sustainable. So
yes, and that point that you're making. So we are out advertising all of our various programs. Our press office is releasing press releases once we achieve a certain feats. So, for example, during COVID-19, we shut down the system every day from 1 o'clock to 4 a.m. in the morning. And that gave us the ability to disinfect all of our subway stations and our trains. And so under ordinary circumstances, we would have waived the MWBE goals. But during COVID-19, we were able to award over $100 million in COVID products and supplies and services to New York State MWBE firms. And so that was a very, very gratifying feat, because under ordinary circumstances, there like in fact would have been a call for us to waive our MWBE goals, and we simply said no. We're going to go out during COVID-19, and we're going to find the best diverse companies in order to do business with. So once again, during COVID-19, we had the ability to award in excess of $100 million to New York State certified firms.
And you advertise this in different newspapers and community newspapers. That's very important.
Yes, we did. And we also issue press releases. Okay.
Fantastic. We need that, because the community newspapers are those who are really read, by the local people.
Yes.
And so that is very, very important. Like I write for Harlem News, and I know that the community is really into that kind of paper. First of all, because it's free. It has a $25,000 copies circulation. So this is very important. Thank you for doing that. That's very important. You talked already about the 10.3 million.
10.3 billion.
10.3 billion, sorry. Yes, you talked about that. And so I'm going also to talk about the $17 billion paid to both New York City and New York State certified MWBEs and MTA certified DBEs overall, including your previous position of the New York City Housing Authority. So we can talk a little bit about that in NYCHA, and the New York City School Construction Authority. I remember that's where you were working when I met you.
Right.
Many years ago. We don't talk about how many, it's better. So tell us a little bit about what you were doing there, because that's the path that brought you to where you are right now.
Yes. So I started my career out at the New York City Housing Authority, where I was working in finance, and then I became a senior buyer. And in that role, I always had a special affinity for the smaller minority-owned firms who were being shut out. And so even going back to my days in NYCHA, we had a focus of empowering Black companies, Hispanic companies, in order to sell products to NYCHA. And then I got the call to go over to the New York City School Construction Authority. And it was there that we really created a lot of aggressive programs that had great results, with contracts being awarded to New York City certified firms. And so there we really created those programs. And then I got the call to come to the MTA, and I use all of those best practices in order for us to create these very innovative and effective programs that we are now ranked #1 in the state of New York. Out of 97 state agencies and authorities, we are ranked #1 with dollars paid to minority-owned businesses. So my experience in finance, my experience in being a senior buyer gave me the ability to focus on solutions and not be blinded by problems. And so anytime that you focus on solutions and not be blinded by problems, you are going to do and achieve great things.
That is fantastic. This is really the focus that you have been having all the time, the solution, and not say we can't do that. This is what brings result. So let's get out a little bit of your commitment with your MTA role and go into the rest of your life. You are, I know, a very active member of the Canaan Baptist Church in Harlem, which is a very active church in the community. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, Canaan Baptist Church historically it has a civil rights mission. The former pastor was Dr. Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, who was the former chief of staff to Dr. King.
Yeah.
And then when he was installed in 1968 as the pastor at Canaan, he became special advisor to former Governor Nelson Rockefeller. And so Canaan Baptist Church has always had a focus on civil rights, making sure that we had the ability to make a difference, find housing, find jobs. And so we pride ourselves in being the difference in Harlem and beyond, where there's a need for housing, for food. That's our mission. And so we do a very, very great job, even doing Thanksgiving and Christmas, handing out turkeys, and making sure that the local residents have the ability to eat during this great holiday period. Because although we live in the Fortune 500 capital of the world, there are still extreme pockets of poverty in this great city that we live in, almost a tale of two cities. And so anything that we can do via the Black Church to make a difference, we are there.
And the Black Church, since I moved to Harlem in 2005, but since I moved to New York even before, the more I live here and the more I realize that the Black Church is really the backbone of the Black community, the backbone, sorry, of
Foundation.
the Black community, the foundation, absolutely.
You know, and it's funny that you should mention that, because every civil rights movement that has occurred in this country historically has evolved out of the Black Church.
Yes. Not only that, not only the civil rights movements and the politics, but also all those people who have become the ambassador of Black excellence in the arts, in the sports, in music, and so on. They all, 9 out of 10, if not all, they come out of the Black Church.
Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, you are absolutely right.
I really feel very much, and I started to go to the church here, which is not something I used to do, because the church, the Black Church, is not just religion, is religion in reality.
Economics,
it's based on the reality, on
housing, social programming.
Yes.
And if you look at two of the most effective pastors that we have here in the city, one is Floyd Flake, who is the pastor at Allen AME. And you look around the church, and he's built townhousing in Southeast Queens. And then you got to also recognize the great feats of the Reverend Dr. Calvin West III, the senior pastor at the great Abyssinian Baptist Church, who has not only built housing, but focused on economic development as well. So those are two key models that if every Black church in America focused on, Black people in this country would be living in better conditions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Let's go to your major accomplishment during the 6 years as president of the 100 Black Men of New York City and as current chairman of the corporate board.
So the founding chapter of the 100 Black Men, we have the ability to be a voice to the voiceless, to empower those who have not been empowered. And so we use our platform of creating, during my time as president, we had 175 of the most powerful Black men in this region, including congressmen, former mayors, business leaders, attorneys, and we still are a great force. So, for example, if you want to talk about the accomplishments that we had during my 6 years as president, one of the longest serving presidents in the history of the founding chapter of the 100 Black Men, we increased our annual budget from 800,000 to 3.6 million.
Yes.
We basically established a lot of great corporate relationships with such like organizations like Uber, the National Football League, Moet Hennessy. So the National Football League hired us to locate Black male college students who were majoring in sports management and sports medicine and give them college scholarships and expose them to the National Football League experience. And so we are putting these Black male students in a spot where they can be integrated into the National Football League with jobs. Also, the chairman of Moet Hennessy hired us during COVID-19 to come up with a process where he wanted to give business grants to Black-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. And so we created a process which awarded 787 Black-owned businesses across the nation business grants from $1,500 to $15,000. This was free money. And so it was 787 companies that we identified, gave grants to in 387 different cities, towns, and villages in 33 different states. And that program was so successful that we're going out next month with round 2 in association with the founding chapter of the 100 Black Men, Moet Hennessy, and the National Basketball Association.
Oh, NBA, that's very good.
Finally, we were able to acquire 5,000 new square feet of office space in the new Urban League building that's being built currently right now on the 125th Street corridor. So our new corporate headquarters will be right down the street from the world famous Apollo Theater. These were some of the things that we did during my tenure as president, and that we continue to do right now as I'm chairman of the corporate board in the Fortune 500 capital of the world.
This 125th Street deal is really something fundamental, I think. Everything you've been saying right now. But I think that was really being able to secure this 5,000 square feet, right, of corporate headquarters, which has a value of nearly $4 million. It's really something fantastic. Also because you are going to be in the center, in the heart of Harlem, which is fundamental for this. Yes. In conjunction with this 100 Black Men, you also you have frequently being a speaker all over the country, both as MTA advisory and as a representative of a 100 Black Men. And tell me some of these events that you have attended, that you have spoken to, that you think is very, very important.
You know, so when we created one of the, if not the most effective minority business program in the country, I'm often called to share best practices. So I fly around the country and I speak at various conferences. And so just this past summer, I was highlighted at a major conference in San Antonio, Texas. Mm-hmm. And I spoke on effective minority business programs. And I have 4 traits that would focus on an effective program. The first trait is that the person who's leading the program must be qualified. Second trait is that that person needs to have adequate staff. Third trait, adequate resources. Fourth trait, the reporting relationship must be at the top. And the person, once again, who's running the program must be qualified and they must be empowered. So having the ability in my career to influence how more than $17 billion being spent with minority women-owned firms, we have the best practices.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so, yes, I'm often called all across the country to talk about the success that we have had here and how other cities and states and organizations can build their program as well.
Fantastic. You've done some other very interesting things. In conjunction with the Manhattan District Attorney of New York City and the New York City Police Department, you conducted a gun buyback program.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because I think that gun violence is one of the worst problems now, which affect also the transport, because I must say, I don't feel safe anymore in the city after COVID, because I think there has been not enough care given to people who have mental problems, and this has affected us all. And now we see the results.
Yes. So I was in Chicago for a long holiday weekend. And during my time in Chicago on that weekend, there were 107 shootings with 19 murders in one weekend.
Right.
And so on my plane ride back to New York, I kind of asked myself, what is it that the founding chapter of the 100 Black Men can do in order to stem gun violence? Mm-hmm. So we had a meeting with Cy Vance, the Manhattan DA, and the senior leadership at NYPD, and we came up with a gun buyback concept. And so we had a Honor Thy Mother gun buyback program, because so many mothers have lost their young Black men to unnecessary gun violence. And we had a Honor Thy Father gun buyback program that next month in June of that year. And so we were responsible for securing 168 guns off the street during those 2-day periods. And so, as opposed to sitting around talking about how bad things are, mm-hmm. I think those of us who have the ability, we should step up, show up, and make sure that we organize and make sure that we get these guns off the street. Because you're right, we are at a very critical time right now. COVID-19 has exposed a lot of flaws in society. And unfortunately, Black people are always at the bottom, and we live in the most adverse condition. And so not only getting guns off the street, but affording people employment and jobs and opportunity will go a long way with bringing our city back and bringing our city back as one, and not have a tale of two cities where you have the Fortune 500 capital of the world, where there's billions of dollars of transactions taking place in Manhattan, and then the South Bronx and the Bronx as a whole is the third poorest county in the country. So we need to fix that, and we need to bridge the gap to bring this back to one glorious economic beacon of hope, and that's the city of New York, the greatest city in the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I'm here. And the other instrument that you're using to bring this up is you funded college scholarships. Tell me a little bit about that, because education is the base of everything.
Yes. So in addition to affording those 12 graduate students who are majoring in sports management and sports medicine college scholarship opportunities, mm-hmm. we also identify at least 20 students every year that we give college scholarships to via our sponsors at the 100 Black Men. And so those scholarships are $5,000 per student. And the money goes directly to the student or to the student's parents, because if the money went to the school, if that student was on any other aid, they would simply reduce their aid package by the $5,000, and it's a wash. So having the ability to give the money directly to the student and to the student parents gives us the opportunity to fill a void and fill a gap in that household.
That's very, very important. Last thing, because we are at the end of this conversation, during COVID, the hot meals that you bought with the Black-owned restaurants and donated. So this is a twofold advantage for the community.
Yes, so during COVID-19, through our sponsors, we raised X amount of dollars, and we purchased 16,000 meals from Black and Hispanic-owned restaurants to keep them going. And then we donated those hot, healthy meals and salads and water to first responder hospitals. And so we gave those meals out every Saturday and Sunday at the various 12 hospitals across the city, including Staten Island. Mm-hmm. And then we also brought masks and gloves and donated those items to the shelters and to the Black churches. And so during COVID-19, we really risked our lives by going out and making sure that we were making a difference. And we were just so happy to buy these hot meals, to keep those restaurants going, but also to give those meals to the first responder hospitals in the emergency rooms and in the IC units, because during that period in time, there were no restaurants open near hospitals. So those doctors and nurses, they would come there, they would work 10, 12-hour shifts. And so we had the ability to set up this food in their lobbies, and they came down, got their meals, and went back up. And so we were very, very happy to make a difference in this great city that we live in during COVID-19.
That is really something amazing and worth everything what you did. So thank you for everything you have been doing, and you are doing, and you continue doing for the community. Thank you for your engagement. And we are at the end of this conversation. Hope you can come back next year to pick up from where we left. And thank you to our viewers for being with us. We see you next Saturday, 12:30, Spectrum 1993. Thank you, Michael.
Take care. Thank you. And keep doing the great work that you're doing with getting the message and the word out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.